What is Ikhfa? What is the correct pronunciation or sound of Ikhfa? That's the topic for today's video as we continue to talk about the ahkam of noon sakinah and tanween, and specifically about Ikhfa. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. In terms of learning outcomes and what you should be able to get from this video, number one, you should be able to analyze the mechanism of Ikhfa. And number two, you should be able to distinguish the correct sound of the ghunnah during Ikhfa. And number three, you should be able to critique some of the common errors. So bismillah, let's jump into the details. Let's start by defining what Ikhfa is. Ikhfa in Arabic means hiding, and practically with Tajweed it means it's pronouncing a letter with a characteristic between idghar and idgham, with no shaddah and with a ghunnah on the first letter. And in the previous video on the Ikhfa of the mim sakinah, we went into the detail of what does between idghar and idgham mean, and that I'll leave a link here in the video. If you wanted to go more into that, what does between idghar and idgham mean, watch that video and inshallah that will make much more sense. Let's start with the first example. When we say the word anfusikum, anfusikum, now here we did an ikhfa of the noon because there is a fa after it. So a noon sakinah and the letter of ikhfa, which is the fa, came after it. So what happened here? We didn't say anfusikum, we didn't say an, that would have been idghar. We didn't touch the makhraj of noon with the tongue, and we didn't say affusihim or affusikum. So we didn't do a merging, which is idgham. So we said anfusikum. So what did we actually practically do? So number one, we did not touch the makhraj of noon with the tongue. But what is the tongue and what is the mouth doing? Well, the mouth is ready for the next letter. The mouth is ready for the fa in this case. So we're saying anfu, anfu. I'm not saying an, but my mouth, you can see the teeth. Anfu. The teeth are at the lower lips. They're ready for the next letter. I'm not pressing that makhraj yet. I'm not saying not quite, but my mouth is ready for the next letter that comes after noon. But where is the ikhfa itself? Where is this hiding? Well, what's being hidden is the noon, because you're not pronouncing the noon clearly. You're not saying an, so you're hiding it. But what's remaining of the noon is a ghunnah from the nasal cavity. Anfu, anfu. So you're hiding the noon, number one. Number two, you are ready for the next makhraj, for the fa. Your mouth is ready for the next makhraj. And there is a ghunnah from the nasal cavity. And now what's happening technically is you have a ghunnah, so most of the sound is the ghunnah, but there's a slight sound from the mouth in this specific ikhfa. Anfusikum. Let's take another word. Mansura, mansura. Same here. I'm not saying mansura. I'm not touching the makhraj of noon, but my mouth is ready for the sad. Mal, mal. And you can hear the ghunnah now. The ghunnah is from the nasal cavity. And there's a little sound from the mouth. Mansura. Now, if you notice, the sound of ikhfa for anfusikum was different than mansura. And the reason is, the key here is that your mouth is ready for the next makhraj, for the letter after it. It's at that next makhraj. And therefore, when I'm saying anfusikum, my mouth is ready for the fa. The shape of the mouth is ready for the fa. And when I'm saying mansura, the shape of the mouth is ready for the sad. So I'm very close to the makhraj of sad. The tongue is cupped because that's what happens in the makhraj of sad, and the epiglottis is going backwards. So that's why mal, you hear the ghunnah here. Mal sounds different than anfu, malsu, anfu, because the ghunnah or the sound of the ikhfa is different because your mouth is ready for the next letter. Now, what are the letters of ikhfa? They are 15 letters. If they come after a noon sakinah or tanween, Ikhfa applies. Another easier way maybe to remember them is if I know the letters of Idhar and Idgham and the letter of Qalb, it's all the remaining letters other than that, these ones, and other than the Alif as well. And let's mention this important point again, that the sound of Ikhfa is different for different letters. Let's practice some examples together. Mansura, Mansura. تنذرهم تنذرهم والأنثى والأنثى. So you notice here with والأنثى, my tongue is close to the makhraj of the tha, but I'm not quite saying والأث, and I'm not saying والأن. It's close to the makhraj of tha. It's at the makhraj of tha, ready for the tha. والأنثى. And then as soon as I'm done with the ikhfa, I go to the makhraj of tha, just there. والأنثى. منكم منكم من قبل من قبل. An important point here for the ikhfa at the kaf and the qaf is for these two letters, the ikhfa sound is coming 100% from the nasal cavity, and there's no small sound that comes from the mouth as compared to the other letters. So why is that? It's because if we remember the makhraj of kaf and qaf, let's say ak and aq, the back of the tongue, right, with the upper palate. Now when we say aq, aq, you're closing off, that tongue is touching. Same with ak, that tongue is touching. So with the ikhfa of qaf and kaf, because they're far away from the noon, the tongue is actually touching the makhraj of qaf and kaf, and it's closing off the mouth. So it's closing off the makhraj of the mouth. So there's no sound that comes from the mouth during this ikhfa. And the sound comes, the whole sound comes from the nasal cavity. So we say minkum, minkum, because my tongue is touching, is closing the makhraj of the mouth, and the entire sound is coming from nasal cavity. Minkum and min qabl. I'm not saying min qabl. That's, for example, that one, the sound is from the mouth, and that's incorrect because I haven't closed the makhraj of the mouth. Correctly pronounced, min qabl, min qabl. Tongues touching the makhraj of qaf, closed off the mouth, and the nose is where the sound comes from. And that applies to the kaf and the qaf. With the next word, shay'in shaheed. Shay'in shaheed. So here once again my mouth is ready for the sheen. I'm not touching the noon. Aynun jariyah. Aynun jariyah. Khamsatun sadisuhum. Khamsatun sadisuhum. Min dun. Min dun. عن طبق عن طبق نفسا زكية نفسا زكية أنفسكم أنفسكم من تفاوت من تفاوت. So here the noon or the ikhfa here, your tongue is close to the makhraj of ta, not there, not touching it, it's at that makhraj. Keeping in mind the makhraj of the dal, the ta and the ta is actually close to the noon. So one has to be very careful not to touch the makhraj of the noon or the dal, ta and ta to have the ikhfa come out correctly. So to pronounce it again, min tafawut. And we're not saying min tafawut. Now you're hearing the noon, that's incorrect. And the next word, mandud. Mandud. So you hear the ghunna here, منضود. Your mouth is ready for the makhraj of dad. You're at that makhraj, very close. The tongue is cupped because it's a harf of isti'la. The epiglottis is moving backwards, so you're ready for the dad, and therefore the sound of the ghunnah comes out as if it is thick or it has tafkhim, the ghunnah. منضود. انظر. انظر. Now let's touch on the most common mistakes, and you can just about tell because we've stressed about them in the video. The first most common mistake is to actually touch the makhraj of noon. So if we say mandud or mindun, and that's incorrect, and we should be saying mindun. The second common mistake is not to have the ikhfa come correctly from the nose and actually make a sound or make the sound come only from the mouth to imitate ikhfa, but that's not quite what ikhfa is. So incorrect would be to say أنفسكم أنفسكم. That's a sound from the mouth, not an actual ghunnah. It should be أنفسكم أنفسكم. And that sound, if the sound is coming from the mouth, it could also be incorrect to be the same sound for all the letters of ikhfa. So we'd say أنفسكم or mandud or mitin. So that sound from the mouth is the same for all the letters. It's a sound from the mouth only, not as much ghunnah or no ghunnah at all. That's not quite correct. So to correct that, number one, the mouth should be ready for the next letter. And number two, most of the sound should be coming from the nasal cavity and only a little sound from the mouth, except for the qaf and kaf, as we said before, where the makhraj of the mouth is actually closed, and for the ikhfa at the qaf and kaf, the entire sound comes from the nasal cavity. So let's pronounce the ikhfa at the qaf and the kaf incorrectly with this mistake to notice a difference. So incorrectly is to say min qabl, min qabl. That sound is from the mouth. Correct is to say min qabl, min qabl. And with the kaf, incorrect is to say minkum, minkum. And correct is to say minkum, minkum. Now let's revisit those learning objectives and make sure we tick them off. Number one, we said we wanted to analyze the mechanism of ikhfa. And we said, ikhfa, you need to get ready for the next letter. You're hiding the noon and you're pronouncing something between an idhar and an idgham. And number two, we wanted to distinguish the sound or the correct sound of ikhfa. And we said that the sound of ikhfa is dependent on the letter that follows the noon, because your mouth is ready for the noon. So the ghunnah would sound differently for different letters. And the third one was to critique some of the most common mistakes, and we spoke about that in depth. We'll see you in the next video. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.